What about in Ice Ice Baby? You used the Queen hook.
Queen David Bowie.
What's happened with that?
Rap music is sampling, and people who don't understand rap music, they say, well, he borrows this or steals this. Rap music, every major rap artist in the world samples music.
Chances are, you have heard of this classic hook that appears very similarly in Queen and David Bowie's 1981 song, Under Pressure, and Vanilla Ice's 1989 song, Ice Ice Baby. Notice the difference? Neither did I on first listen. While this particular case of plagiarism is well known and quite obvious, other claims are less clear. This brings us to a fundamental question that I'll attempt to answer today. Who owns images, sounds, and words? Can anyone really own these things, or the ideas behind them? Are we ever original? Well, the United States government seems to think so, starting from as far back as the nation's inception with the Constitution. Thomas Jefferson's idea of the intellectual property is enshrined in the Constitution. Quote, giving Congress the power to promote the progress of science and useful arts by securing for limited times to authors and inventors the exclusive right to their respective writings and discoveries. Did you catch that? Content creators have the exclusive right to their respective writings and discoveries. This right is given to us in our very Constitution among our right to assemble, right to bear arms, right to counsel, and several others. So how does this translate in the real world? The short answer? It's complicated. The United States government makes it very clear what copyright law actually protects, saying that it doesn't protect the facts, ideas, systems, or method of operations. However, it does protect the way that these things are expressed. Even the government admits that it has no ability to regulate the ownership of abstract ideas. But from examining copyright laws, it becomes very evident that all of us are committing some sort of copyright violation. To illustrate this point, I've listed out a few things that we might do on a daily basis. Seems very reasonable to me. Let's see what copyright law actually says. But now you might be cleverly thinking, wait a minute, what about public domain? I've seen James Corden and Jamie Foxx perform those public domain songs on CBS. Unfortunately, public domain is also not a straightforward concept. According to the Public Domain Information Project, a work is in the public domain when no one on this entire planet can find any law which gives them legal claim to that property. This is similar in statistics to the null hypothesis. We never accept the null, rather we can only fail to reject. With public domain, we can never have proof that a work is in the public domain. We can only fail to show proof of a copyright claim. To complicate things further, a musical work and a sound recording of a musical work are entirely different. For example, James Corden and Jamie Foxx recently did a segment where they did their own renditions of public domain songs. This is how James Corden explains his reasoning.
Paying for the rights to sing songs on television can be very, very expensive. And frankly, we blew our budget on catering. So, to keep costs down, I like to sing totally free public domain songs.
They performed some smash hits like Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, Bingo, and Row 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 Your Boat.
Above the world so high.
These songs are absolutely in the public domain worldwide and can be used by anyone without cost. However, there is not a single sound recording of these songs in the public domain. Furthermore, almost all sound recordings are under copyright protection until the year 2067. This means that there's going to be no new freely usable content available until the year 2067. So this seems all pretty confusing to me, but let's see what the average Dartmouth student has to think about it.
Have I ever produced a copyrighted work?
You ever produced a copyrighted work?
No.
No. No, not that I can think of.
Yeah, not in my recent memory, no.
I don't think so.
No, I haven't.
I have no.
From my interesting history, I feel like I have, but I want to say I haven't.
Actually, I have, yeah. I wrote a novel when I was 16.
I don't think I have. You want me to say no, yeah?
I think no is my last and final answer.
I'm buzzing it in, no.
Isaac, no? What about you?
Well, actually, according to US copyright law, everything we make is copyrighted from its inception. This means that any photograph that you took, any essay that you wrote, is copyrighted, according to US copyright law. With such broad copyright law and so much copyrighted content, are we forced to break the law to properly collaborate with each other and contribute new works to society? Well, Jonathan Lethem describes this inherent disconnect between the communal sharing of ideas and the capitalist society that we live in. Lethem describes Jefferson's vision not faring so well, saying that it has in fact been steadily eroded by those who view the culture as a market in which everything of value should be owned by someone or other. He continues, saying that the distinctive feature of modern American copyright law is its almost limitless bloating, its expansion in both scope and duration. This expansion has become problematic in many ways to content creators, especially new content creators or small, independent ones. Lawrence Lessig, a professor of law at Harvard and a founder of the Creative Commons, has been fighting to make copyright law more understandable. Creative Commons is an organization that provides legal frameworks for content creators to facilitate the legal sharing and collaboration of creative works. For example, when you see a CC license, this refers to the kinds of rights that the original owner is willing to give to a user of a creative work that they own. Lessig made a very interesting comparison between copyright law and trespass law.
Well, the Supreme Court considered this 100 years tradition. The Supreme Court said the doctrine protecting land all the ways to the sky has no place in the modern world. Otherwise, every transcontinental flight would subject the operator to countless trespass suits. Common sense, a rare idea in the law, but here it was. Common sense revolts at the idea. Common sense.
So what is common sense in the context of copyright law? Take music, for example, where there's only a certain number of chord progressions and notes that when strung together sound pleasing to our ears. Where do we draw the distinction between the intentional copying of certain musical productions and simply the usage of a common musical feature that we think is pleasing to our ears? To find out more about this, I asked a recent graduate of Dartmouth, Karina Chang, who creates her own music and often covers a lot of very famous songs, what she thinks.
We can't determine musical plagiarism using the same standards as one that we would use for English literature. I'm not quite sure what it would look like, but if I haphazardly try, I would say that we need to consider an aspect of context. And that indescribable context / emotion, whole package put together, I think is also a very important part of music. And the way I express myself in that piece of music becomes some mishmash of everything that I've heard and experienced before. I don't think that's something that copyright laws can necessarily pinpoint, because it's trying to pinpoint my identity, something that nothing or no one in this world can really pinpoint. So it would be hard to have a clean-cut way to determine the borders of plagiarism in music. But of course there are some very clear breaches, such as singing someone else's song and calling it your own. That's something that we would call covers rather than your work. If you give credit where credit deserves, I don't think there should be any problems. Usually covers become gnarly when you disrespect someone else's intellectual property by not giving them credit, or when money is involved.
When money is involved. Ironically, this is something that Vanilla Ice also mentions in his defense of sampling the bass line from Queen and David Bowie's Under Pressure.
See, the reason why you don't hear as much controversy going on with other rap groups sampling and stuff is because a good rap record in the United States just goes gold. A platinum record's a lot for rap. And I sold 5 platinum. So, you know, it's like they're gonna definitely come and get me.
Does Vanilla Ice's explanation of the lawsuit against him say something about our society? Maybe. But one thing is really clear. Copyright law needs to change. When I started this video project, I was very keenly aware that there are certain things that copyright law specifies that are very strict, such as you can't use someone else's work without permission. So from perusing through the internet and looking for songs that would serve as the background music or certain clips that I used, there was a certain amount of hesitation that I ran into. Where would these songs come from? Do I have to buy the license to these songs? Are there royalties that I would need to pay? All these things were in my mind, and as I looked through, I ran into these things called publishing rights organizations, or PROs. These PROs effectively control most of the music that we hear online and in coffee shops, in stores, and you have to have a certain royalty or fee paid to them to actually use the music that they control. And this is quite surprising to me because I found it very confusing for someone like me that was just making a video that they would use and wasn't a professional who did this on a daily basis. To illustrate, let me turn to Vox, who frequently puts the credits at the end of their video. They write the song that's used and the publishing rights organization that they got it from. Every single video, very meticulously. This is an incredible burden for an independent creator and is further evidence that copyright law just simply cannot exist in the way it does. And it puts an unfair burden on independent content creators, students, and other individuals that simply don't have the resources and the time to go through and look at all these works and disseminate which ones and what sources they come from and pay the fees. And for a student that isn't making any income from the video, is there really a need to pay for the music in that way? Or are we just under the assumption that we just aren't going to be sued for this because it's not worth the time for the publishing rights organization?